How's it going, guys? Stipe from SGN here to talk about Daniel Cormier and his simply phenomenal performance last night against Stipe Miocic. Honestly, if you haven't seen my prediction video, I'm going to go ahead and tell you, I expected Stipe Miocic to go out there. It was going to be a very tough fight for the first 2 or 3 rounds. DC would eventually get tired carrying that extra weight that he wasn't used to carrying anymore, like in an actual fight situation. And I expected him to struggle because of that and get caught after the 3rd or 4th or maybe even the 5th round and get finished, or at least go to a decision losing 3 to 4 rounds. And yet Daniel Cormier in the first round shocked everybody, or at least most people, and put Stipe Miocic, who is arguably the best heavyweight of all time, to sleep. And that was it was simply phenomenal. Words cannot describe how impressive that was for DC. I didn't expect it. I expect him, like I said, to make it a tough fight, at least early on. But I definitely didn't expect him to be going out there and knocking out Stipe Miocic. Not just because Stipe is so good, but also because we hadn't seen Daniel Cormier rock somebody badly since what? When was the last time? Since his Strikeforce days, possibly. We know he finished Dan Henderson, submissions, Patrick Cummings, stuff like that, but we'd never really seen him drop somebody with a punch in that emphatic fashion and finish him with some ground and pound. That was something that I didn't expect to see. I simply didn't expect to see because he doesn't traditionally have this monstrous power, and Stipe Miocic has a great chin. And yet DC managed to knock him not unconscious, but borderline knock him unconscious. He hurt him really bad, stumbled him, dazed him, and finished him with some ground and pound. Phenomenal performance of Daniel Cormier. And there's a lot of people out there saying, is he the greatest of all time? Well, I'm not going to say he's the greatest of all time because in my opinion he's not. But I think he's absolutely top 3 now. Because if you look at the guys that have always been in the running for the past, 10 years now? Or at least the past 5, basically, since they reached towards the end of their careers. And of course, in John Jones' case, he's having so many issues right now. Of course, Anderson Silva. But in my opinion, Anderson Silva, he is completely disqualified because unlike John Jones, who he was caught in a very strange fashion with this last one, where it was the only time he's ever had a no contest, and it was just extremely weird because John Jones was, tested in such close range. He was tested negative, then he tested positive with an extremely low amount, and then tested negative again. So there's something weird about that, and the Athletic Commission, like Jeff Nowitzki himself, has said he's inclined to believe. No, not Jeff Nowitzki. Yeah, Jeff Nowitzki, yes. I think it was on Joe Rogan's podcast. He himself said he's more inclined to believe that John Jones didn't do anything wrong. He didn't actually take anything that was illegal or something like that. It was just something strange happened. That's Jeff Nowitzki, the leader of USADA, saying that, or the leader of UFC testing. So I'm inclined to believe him. Joe Rogan says the same thing. And in general, it seems like the general consensus of people that actually know what they're talking about is John Jones didn't do anything wrong. It's just something weird happened, and for some reason, it was in his system, but just a very small trace amount where it wouldn't even have a minimum effect on his body. But it was there, so who knows. But unlike John Jones, Anderson Silva has been caught 3 times now. Each time with an actual anabolic steroid or something that's extremely illegal, and he's always had some bullshit excuse like he took some Type nice drugs, or in other words, Type penis drugs, whatever the fuck. I guess he has limp dick, I don't know. But regardless, that's a bullshit, it's a garbage excuse considering it's happened 2 other times since then. And at this point, Anderson Silva, you have to relinquish all. I'm not going to say all of them because he was still a phenomenal fighter. It was one of the best we've ever seen in terms of what he actually did in the cage. But it's hard to really give him those plaudits when, if you look at the fighters that he's fought, they weren't that great, at least not a lot of them. A lot of the guys that he beat, compared to the guys that John Jones has beat, the guys that DC has beat, they don't really match up. The guys that GSP has beat, they don't really match up compared to those guys. So, in my opinion, the guys he's beat aren't as impressive. Of course, the way he won them was very impressive, but like I said, the guys he beat weren't that impressive for the most part. And, of course, all the steroids issues, in my opinion, he's out of the picture in terms of top 3. John Jones, like I said, when it comes to guys he's beaten, he's, without a doubt, the one that has the most impressive resume. Beat DC, beat him twice, basically. Of course, that was no contest because of some weird little test. But regardless, he knocked him unconscious with a head kick and then beat the hell out of him with just some brutal stuff. It was just a brutal finish. It was a brutal finish. And regardless, whether you think he did it or not, that will forever be in your memory because he did destroy DC with that in that fight. The first fight was very close, but John Jones very much, he dominated at least 4, some people say 3, I say 4 rounds. So in my opinion, John Jones definitely won that in decisive fashion. There was definitely no controversy there. I don't think anybody actually thought that DC won, and regardless, John Jones still got the W. So he's beaten DC twice. He beat Alexander Gustafsson. That was some controversial because a lot of people think that Gustafsson won. I can see scoring for both guys. Regardless, he won the fight. He destroyed Vitor Belfort with a hyperextended arm, basically broken. He destroyed Lyoto Machida, who at the time was looking like he was unstoppable. He destroyed, who else? He beat down Chael Sonnen, who got a lot of respect from guys who, even though, of course, most people are recognize that Chael Sonnen really isn't one of the elite fighters, but still, he's still dismantled Chael Sonnen. He's beat a lot of extremely tough guys. Of course, Shogun Rua, who was the champion. Rashad Evans, who was a former champion. He destroyed a lot of the elite fighters, especially of that time, guys who were legends of the sport, and he dismantled each and every one of them, including a lot of the young blood. Ovin St. Preux as well. He beat a lot of extremely good guys. So Jon Jones definitely, in my opinion, is number one. Then you have GSP, George St. Pierre, a guy who has beaten Carlos Condit, beat Nick Diaz, beat Matt Serra in the rematch. He beat Johnny Hendricks. He beat, however, I do think that Johnny Hendricks won that fight, but regardless, he beat Johnny Hendricks. He beat Matt Hughes, beat BJ Penn. He beat just about every single person you could possibly beat to earn yourself GOAT status, especially a welterweight. So he is definitely in the running as well. I just think that he's a little... Michael Bisping as well, one of the first two-weight world champions in UFC history. So you cannot deny that these guys are up there. But, of course, DC. What has DC done? Okay, he won the heavyweight title. Amazing, of course. And he didn't just do what GSP did, which was basically go up a weight class and beat Michael Bisping, who, with all due respect, nobody actually thinks that Michael Bisping was one of the top three. And really, a lot of people don't even think he was one of the top 5 guys in the middleweight division when he was champion. I personally think he lost against Dan Henderson in the rematch as well. So that just shows what level Michael Bisping was at. So, of course, GSP did a great job going up there, fighting for the first time at middleweight, and beating Michael Bisping, winning the title with the way he beat him. But realistically, it wasn't as impressive as DC going up to heavyweight after so long and beating Stipe Miocic by knockout in the first round. So DC, in my opinion, has surpassed Anderson Silva. He has surpassed GSP. He is number 2 on the greatest of all time list. That might be kind of controversial, but if you look at what he's done, all right, he was like 10-0 as a heavyweight before going down the middleweight, beating guys like Josh Barnett, Bigfoot Silva, who was pumped up with steroids. You can't discount that. Going into the UFC, beating Roy Nelson, who at the time was considered a very dangerous guy because of how powerful he was, and overall he was at a stage of his career where he was 1 or 2 fights away from winning a title shot. I'm talking about Roy Nelson here. Daniel Cormier was realistically the number 1 contender or the number 2 contender in the heavyweight division, but decided to go down to light heavyweight because Cain Velasquez, his teammate, was the champion. He didn't want to be involved with that, so he went down to light heavyweight. Who did he beat? Literally everybody except for Jon Jones. He beat Alexander Gustafsson, who's an amazing fighter. He destroyed Volkan Ozdemir, who knows, he might be pretty good. We haven't really seen a whole lot of him except for a few early knockouts, but we'll see what he does against Gustafsson. He beat Anthony Rumble Johnson, who was an absolute killer twice, destroying him in the same exact fashion, basically breaking him mentally. He has beaten Patrick Cummins, a GOAT-level fighter. He beat Dan Henderson. He's literally beaten everybody that has ever been put in front of him who is not named Jon Jones, who is literally not named the greatest of all time. He has beaten everybody except for the greatest of all time, and you cannot discount that. So in my opinion, Daniel Cormier, while not the greatest of all time, he is number 2. And if Jon Jones eventually doesn't get his head out of his ass, doesn't come back, and he is actually proven to be in some kind of way 100% a cheater, then DC will probably be number 1, especially if he beats Brock Lesnar, maybe beats Alexander Gustafsson again, or if Jon Jones comes back and DC manages to beat Jon Jones, then 100% DC is the greatest of all time. But as of right now, in my opinion, Jon Jones is still the number 1. It's just a matter of Jon Jones coming back, figuring out all these issues, being proven that he's not a cheater because, like I said, Jeff Nowitzki, the leader of the UFC's testing, has proclaimed that in his opinion, Jon Jones wasn't cheating there. It was just some kind of freak accident. It is what it is. But regardless, Daniel Cormier, absolute machine. The fact that he went out there against Stipe Miocic, and of course early on in the fight, just like happens a lot of times with DC, he was on the losing end of the fight, more or less, in the earlier part of the round. But he was never in grave danger. There were some moments where he got hit and he looked like he was maybe a little bit dazed, but I don't think he really was. If you look at the way the fight progressed, he was looking like he was just finding his range. He was finding... And he said himself, he was kind of studying Stipe's speed, studying his power, and figuring out what he could and could not do. And he really went out there and he executed it perfectly. He executed it, figured out what Stipe's weakness was, and he executed it, knocked him out, and just phenomenal performance. Nobody can deny that Daniel Cormier is one of the best fighters of all time. And if he can continue doing this at 39 years of age, I don't know, dude. Imagine if he started doing MMA a bit younger. Imagine if he was like 37 right now doing what he's already done, having 2 or 3 more years of his career. It would have been amazing. And honestly, what he's done at this age, clean. I'm going to say it again, clean, no steroids, have never been accused of being on steroids, never being accused of not even being close to relatively being associated to steroids, and doing what he's still doing after being an Olympic wrestler, destroying his body basically since he was a little kid, for him to still being doing this at 39 years old, becoming the heavyweight champion. You just can't describe how unlikely that is for any human ever to do what he's done. It's phenomenal. It's just simply amazing. He is I'm going to go ahead and say it. He's a once-in-a-lifetime athlete. Like, there's guys, LeBron James, whatever you want to say. These guys are once-in-a-lifetime athletes. But they haven't done what DC just did at 39 years old. You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to say he's a better athlete than LeBron James or anything like that. But in MMA, what he has done is simply, there's nobody that's done something like that. Absolutely not. And I'm going to say it again. Clean. There's guys like Vitor Belfort, 40 years old, something like that, just juice to the gills, knocking dudes unconscious with spinning wheel kicks, something he didn't do for his entire career, all of a sudden knocking dudes out at like 37 years old. But he was, and it was official, he was pumped to the gills on testosterone. Daniel Cormier, he's not even relatively remotely associated to steroids. So for him at 39 years of age, doing what he's doing, it's amazing. Hats off to Daniel Cormier. You still haven't answered me on Xbox Live. I'm going to keep on spamming you until you eventually do. I was even in your NBA 2K lobby, but you still haven't answered me. So I'm a little bit offended by that. If you are somehow watching this, Daniel Cormier, I am a little bit offended by that. But still, you're a great dude. You can tell you represent the sport in a way that literally John Jones would never be able to do. He is, without a doubt, the best champion that the UFC's ever had in terms of what he represents, this personality, how good he is with a microphone, everything about him. I guess Conor McGregor is like the best guy on the microphone and stuff like that. But Daniel Cormier, he's a great dude. He's a beloved dude by just about everybody who isn't a moron. He is I don't know. You just can't find any negatives for Daniel Cormier. So hats off to him. Hats off for him doing something that's just historic, and hopefully he will have a positive end to his story and will possibly beat down Brock Lesnar. I'm hoping that he does make that fight happen, that the fight does happen, and he does walk out in the sunset with a huge payday, having beaten down a guy who really doesn't even belong in the octagon with Daniel Cormier. So that is it for the video. Let me know in the comments section down below what you think of his win, and if you think that he is the greatest of all time. Who do you think? John Jones, GSP, Daniel Cormier, Anderson Silva? Let me know who you think it is on there. And I know for a fact my man Steve Bushy has Daniel Cormier. We had a pretty solid debate last night about who it is. I have John Jones. He has DC because he disqualifies John Jones. But it's a matter of opinion. Let me know what you think, guys. Anyway, if you enjoyed the video, please smash the like button. Subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell. That way you're one click away from watching the video every time you get notified. And once again, guys, thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next video.